All right, here we go. Again, a wonderful morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Tim, and I will be your host for this morning. You have attended and subscribed to a session on Tableau CRM. The session will take about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how far we can get. I see you all are still dripping in, but let's proceed. So first of all, just to make sure you're in the right room today, I will be talking mainly about Salesforce and Tableau. The logo of Tableau here is in the Salesforce cloud. Why? I will elaborate on that extensively during the session, but Salesforce and Tableau it will be. So I will be talking a lot about data, data preparation, data flows, and visualization, and also at the ending a little bit about data science. We at Bistory have noticed in the past few months and maybe years that there is still a good reason to talk about what Tableau is, what Tableau CRM is, and how it's really positioned within the broader Salesforce ecosystem. So I surely hope that by attending this session, you will learn more about how these tools actually are oriented in the whole ecosystem. It's only 2 to 3 hours. Do know that at Bistory we have a full day training where we really zoom into all topics regarding Tableau CRM. We'll talk about how to set up Tableau CRM. We'll talk about the licenses, what it is, what it does, and as you will notice soon, it will actually split up in roughly two big sites, and it's called the data layer and the design layer. Because as you might know, before you can create these nice and shiny dashboards, of course, you need to have data to work on, to work with. We'll talk about dashboards, of course. We'll zoom in on the features, what is possible, how does it work, but more importantly as well, where can you find it? Today I will be mainly switching between, on the one side, the Salesforce CRM in the browser. Secondly, between my slides, and then because I do know there are a lot of people who come from a more Tableau desktop background, I might even sometimes draw some parallels with the tool you might already know, just to see where it is and how it behaves inside of Salesforce. But although it's a wrap up of a one-day session, it's Friday, it's basic, you won't be sweating, we won't be doing the very complicated stuff. It's literally just showing you around and giving you the appetite of a starter for you to learn, to start learning about Tableau CRM, maybe start learning about Salesforce. And if you're already using Salesforce today, to see how you can use it inside your organization. It's a basic session. I will give you a lot of examples. It's not a hands-on session, so you can sit back and listen, keep calm, but I hope I can keep your attention before the weekend kicks in. All right, first, the obligatory introduction. Who are we? Who am I? Bistory is a big bunch of specialized consultants. We deliver licenses, we deliver services, we do a lot of kind of things. It's still Corona, but we had the chance earlier this year to go on a trip with the whole company. So here you see all our shiny faces. And if you wondered, I was the tourist with the hat. Bistory was founded in 2015. We already exist for 7 years. We started out with a laser focus on the Tableau product line. But as you will see through time, we have broadened our scope because our clients demanded it. And we also want to offer a more end-to-end offering, both from the side of data and also from the side of data visualization. We are or have served over 700 customers. We also have a big culture of training Tableau, training Salesforce, training Tableau Server, Desktop, etc. And we are very keen on our certifications. Of course, we have a lot of Tableau trained consultants and also Salesforce certified consultants. We tend to say about ourselves, we are resilient, we are playful, we are sensitive, we do belong, we are focused, and we craft. These are our main aspects. We represent ourselves via the avatars. Some of you might know us already. Here you get a brief overview of these nice avatars. So, as I said, we at Bistory try to bring an end-to-end solutions because your data, of course, can live at a multitude of places. So you probably have some legacy systems going on. Maybe your data is residing in some apps. Maybe even you have some unstructured data, such as video or images. And our weapons of choice at this moment in time are Fivetran, Snowflake, and with Tableau. But as you will see, since a year or two, Salesforce has become a big aspect of what we do. All right, enough about us, enough about me. Let's just go and start with the start. Let's start with a date. We are June 2019. Let's say early summer 2019. Why this date? If anybody has an idea and you're quick, put it in the chat. I'll wait a few seconds. Why is this such an important date? Well, I'll give it away. That is the moment that Salesforce signed the agreement to acquire Tableau. And that was a very big thing, a very bold move. Why so? Salesforce has already been known for many years as being the world's best CRM, and they had then bought what still today, in my opinion, is one of the best analytical platforms. Now, Salesforce has a reputation and on buying tools, features, companies, and fitting them in nicely into what they already have. In my opinion, Salesforce is very good at the integration, and they always succeed in integrating it into their system, their CRM, and making sure that the end users, the people actually doing their jobs, nicely can make use of these new integrations. Now, 2 years ago, I wasn't doing Salesforce. At this, we weren't doing Salesforce, but we were now a Salesforce company. So in the past 2 years, we have seen actually the two worlds melting into each other. Salesforce with their CRM, Tableau with the visualization aspect. And today, I hope to show where this integration is going, where we are, where it resides in CRM, and more importantly, what you can do with it. Another thing which makes it for a lot of people maybe a little bit more complicated is the fact that we used to have Einstein Analytics in the past, which already was a dashboarding engine in the CRM. This has totally been rebranded to Tableau CRM. So what we're seeing today is connecting to your data, setting up flows, writing data sets, building interactive data dashboards, sharing them with your colleagues, making sure these dashboards enter or appear in your mailboxes every day. That's being done by Tableau CRM today. Here you see an overview of the Tableau product line. And I want to make clear once again that today we will mainly focus on Tableau CRM. And as the bit pointed out on the website, formerly known as Einstein Analytics. Now, do know Tableau Desktop is a standalone tool which allows you to create dashboards. Tableau Prep is a tool which allows you to connect, transform, and write your data. Tableau Server is an environment where you can put your dashboards, and Tableau Online is the online version of it, the non-premise version of it. But Salesforce as a CRM has a lot of data. You may be using Sales Cloud. You may be using Service Cloud. Operating the CRM, you generate a lot of data. Well, when you do business, you sell stuff, you buy stuff, you make calls, you do emails, you have your opportunities which go through a sales funnel. All these things reside in the Salesforce CRM. And they are called, as we will see later, data objects. Tableau CRM, in the first place, is focused on doing analytics with these data objects, with your account information, with your opportunities information, doing a follow-up on your sales, doing follow-up on your forecasts. Tableau CRM allows you to really start working with your data, creating dashboards on it, and putting them where they belong. It's 2021, so where they belong can mean anything. It can be that the dashboards are in the actual CRM, whether they get emailed, or even as they have recently bought Slack, having the right visuals in the right place in your Slack environment, for example. Now, do notice that at the bottom, you see our little friend Einstein. And although Einstein Analytics today is Tableau CRM, Einstein is literally everywhere. Now, Einstein in short, and I will show you in a bit in the actual CRM, actually stands for making things more intelligent, making things easier, in a lot of cases, making sure that you can do stuff faster and also automate them. Maybe most famously, Einstein in Salesforce ecosystem is known for allowing you to do data science, mostly from a citizen data scientist perspective. There where we maybe 5 to 10 years ago, it would require a PhD in statistics to train and build models. We see today that hurdle is lowering with every release. Salesforce really succeeds in automating these processes, guiding people in training their own models without necessarily having the coding skills or needing the coding skills to train and deploy a model, as we will see at the end. And although Einstein Analytics has been rebranded to Tableau CRM, we see the notions of Tableau Discovery, which we will discuss. We'll talk about it later. Here again, bringing AI predictions to Tableau with Einstein Discovery. Now, as a consultant, as a technical consultant, I've been using Tableau since 2013, 2014. It's my job to really stay on the top of the innovations because clients ask us, we do have Tableau, we're considering Salesforce, or we have Salesforce, we consider Tableau, what can we do? Well, I mainly focus at BIS3 at 4 pillars. The first one we will check at the end of the webinar is, if you're a Tableau desktop user, how can we make use of these Salesforce features in the tools we're already using today? That's one. Secondly, imagine you're a customer, you have Salesforce, and you have a Tableau server. It is capable, it's possible today to embed the dashboards you already have in your Salesforce ecosystem. There where it used to be maybe a bit technical, putting a few line of codes in your CRM to actually embed a dashboard, there we already see a huge increase in easiness of embedding these things. It can be as easy as taking the link of your Tableau server dashboard and really embedding it in your Salesforce. But today, as I said, we will focus on the Salesforce CRM. It's really the Tableau CRM inside Salesforce itself. And then Einstein.ai on the right side. Salesforce also offers, for example, image recognition, OCR text recognition. That won't be the focus of today. We are planning to do some sessions on that later on. But if you want to learn about that, please feel free to already have a look at Einstein.ai. Good. Setting up Tableau CRM. Imagine you have Salesforce, but you want to start using it. How do you proceed? But maybe more importantly, if you want to test it, if you want to learn it, where do you start? You maybe not always have the possibilities to install the tool, but Salesforce has made it very easy for you to set up what is called your own org. An org, literally, you can think about it as an organization, a server for yourself to play with. So if you want to join along today, or maybe after today, you want to play with Tableau CRM, do know that it's very easy to set up your own org for yourself. So for example, I'm not going to do it from scratch because I have already done it. If you navigate to the URL, which we will share after the session, you can fill in this form, sign me up. You will get an email in your mailbox, confirm, and within no time, you'll have your Salesforce org set up. Let me go into my presentation. You will get your own org. You will need to choose your username and you will be good to go. Now, what will you have? All right, good. To log into your org, you will need to navigate to salesforce.com, and I will now log in with the org I have spinned up by logging in. For those who are not familiar with Salesforce, we are now in Salesforce. Now, what are we looking at? Now, you can have a sales cloud, you can have a marketing cloud, you can even have a service cloud. But if the question is, where is Tableau in Salesforce? No. You look for Tableau, you don't really find anything. Okay, let's look for Einstein. All right, there's quite a lot going on. But where is Tableau CRM? Well, if you have it enabled, if you have it installed, you will find it at the top right under Analytics Studio. We here nicely see Tableau logo. That is where the magic happens. Let's click on it for a moment. Analytics Studio will pop up. In the next 2 hours, I will try to guide you in what we are seeing here. But first of all, I want to focus on the fact to check whether it's enabled in your organization. How do we do that? Via the setup menu, you can type in analytics. Let's do that. So if I'm here in my org, I type analytics. I go to settings. getting started better. First time you go to this menu, at the top right, you will see this big button, Enable Tableau CRM. You click on it and it will be enabled. Of course, you will need the necessary licenses, of which I will talk about in a bit. So once you have enabled Tableau CRM, you will be able to locate the analytics logo at the top right. What do we already see? Of course, Salesforce is very good at it. All the learning resources are there, where to start, quick setup, optional settings. So your learning adventure can start from here, but the only thing you need to remember from now is go to analytics, enable it, and it will pop up at the top right. All right, so far, so good. Licensing. For every person in your organization who wants to make use of Tableau CRM will need to have a license. There's a lot of text on here. Don't bother reading it. The only thing you need to remember that there are basically two kinds of licenses. You have the Tableau CRM admin license and the Tableau CRM Plus license. In these two licenses, there is a little difference between a growth version and a plus version. Do remember that the growth version is when you don't have that many data rows in your org, and the plus version is where you have a lot of data. I don't know by head, but I think it's up to 100 million rows for growth and 10 billion rows for the plus licenses. So as I mentioned, setup, analytics, getting started, click enable, and you are good to go. The effects of enabling Tableau CRM, it automatically will upsert two users on your org, an integration user and a cloud security user. Why is that? I don't want to get too technical about it, but we will be creating flows, running flows, scheduling flows. All of that, of course, will happen automatically. You don't want to push the button for every flow you run your organization. So do know that your analytics cloud integration user and analytics security users will get adjusted in order for Tableau CRM to work and make this all possible. Then the two big notions you need to be familiar with when you start working with Tableau CRM is the notion of permission set licenses, permission set, and permissions. I know permissions isn't the most sexy topic maybe, but for now, do remember that at the highest level, you will attribute a permission set license to a user on your org. That is actually the biggest umbrella what that user is allowed to do. Then the actual permission set is a subset of these permissions. Imagine that you have the license to read and write, but a specific user should only read or only write. Then by specifying a permission set, you can specify what that user actually can do on your server. Now, I know this is very vague. How does that look in your Salesforce org? So for example, if we go to users and I effectively click on users, there should be a guy on there called Tim Dries. That's me. And as you can see on the org, I operate as a system administrator. Yeah, let's click it. At the top, you see this very general information about that user, being myself in this case, the email address with which I operate on the system, my username. But then what I was just talking about, when you want a user to be able to use Tableau CRM, it's very important to give him one of the license assignments. So as you can see, I have the Tableau CRM Plus, and for the permission sets, I have the Tableau CRM Plus admin user. Now, let's click it to make it more specific. What does that mean? These licenses come with permissions. As I mentioned, I'm not going to read all of them, but just let me pick out a few. Is that user capable of creating Tableau CRM apps? Is that user capable of using Einstein Discovery? Is that user capable of making subscriptions to emails? Because, for example, you've made a dashboard, you want your colleague to subscribe to it, making sure that that user can subscribe to it. It's all arranged in the permission sets. So in short, permissions, every user will need to have a permission set license, and then specific permissions of what that user actually can do. One more thing, an admin license can sound very heavy. That does not mean that that user will be able to configure your whole organization. No, admin in the Tableau CRM context means is that user capable of creating stories, deploying models, training models. So the admin license within Tableau CRM can really be seen as the more data tech savvy person, whereas a plus user most of the time will be somebody who might be creating dashboards, viewing dashboards, but not really like generating stories, etc., etc. Good. For the pricing, I'll provide the links. There are 3 types of licenses, as I said. The Einstein predictions, which is basically the model engine without the visual aspect. The Tableau CRM growth license, which is the same as the plus, but then for less rows. So here visually again represented, the Einstein predictions license comes with a prediction builder. Einstein Discovery comes with actually the fact that you can build the models, but then the growth and the plus license actually have the Analytics Studio where really the visual stuff happens. Good. So I showed you where you can find the users. We talked about the fact that they need to have the right permissions, permission set. Now, once you have access to Tableau CRM, of course, you need to make sure that there is data to dashboard on. And we'll talk about notifications, we'll talk about subscriptions, we talk about the watch lists, but what is there in the Analytics Studio? And I think the best way to show it at the highest level is by going to all items. There are a few concepts you need to get familiar with. The first one are apps. Apps can actually be seen as folders, or maybe if you come from Tableau server context, as projects. It's really where everything comes together. If you have a dashboard, you have data, it will all be centralized in a specific app. Of course, with the necessary security on it, because not everybody can see everything, etc., etc. Secondly, the dashboards. And let me quickly click on one, because this is really what it's all about making dashboards, visual representations of your data. Let me go back. Let me show another one. The motivator is an example of a dashboard. Of course, we also will talk about interactivity, but that's for later. Then stories. Also another very important concept is an analysis. It can be an advanced analysis, but mainly when you say about stories, it's when you are training predictive models in Tableau CRM. Later, at the end, depending on how far we can get, we'll do an example on Titanic dataset. I have chosen today not to overly focus on the data objects in Salesforce, because if you come from a background where you're not a Salesforce user yet, opportunities and accounts might not say so much. So I tried to make distinction of the data just to really show you the features. Then lenses, we'll talk about that as well. In short, already, a lens is an interpretation of a data set. It can be visual, it can be a table, it can be a subset of data, but a lens is really a sub-selection of a data set, and it can be a selection of an analysis on its own. And then the thing we will start with are the data sets. People coming from Tableau Server might be familiar with published data sources, and this is maybe one of the most general rules in dashboarding and working with data is most of the time you don't want to put pressure on operational systems. Sometimes there's a use case for querying live data, but most of the time you want to have some kind of staging area, some kind of landing zone for your data. And also, maybe your boss wants to have real-time insights, live connections, etc. And that's all possible. In my humble experience, I can say 95% of the time, that's not really necessary. Why not? If your data only changes, let's say, only every week, it's not necessary to refresh it every day. So we'll have a look at that as well. Templates, we won't have a look at that today. So, little recap, we are in Analytics Studio, and in the Analytics Studio, we have apps where we organize everything we do, the dashboards, the stories, the datasets, etc. We have the actual dashboards. I have quite a bunch of them. The stories are analysis we have already performed. Lenses are an interpretation of a data set. We'll zoom into them, no worries if the distinction between all of them isn't that clear yet. And we have the data sets. All right. Now, there's a lot possible, and there are probably a few ways to get to the same result, but there are a few things you need to do. And the most important thing is think before you act. Maybe you have dashboards in mind you want to create. Maybe you have some legacy dashboards you want to migrate to your Salesforce environment, but think before you act. Just to really give you a stupid example, if you're going to do an analysis on this year's sales, don't load 15 years of transactional data just for your dashboard, because it might get slow, you have redundant data. So really think about, what data do I need? Think before you act. You'll need to think about how you're going to structure your data set, what types of analysis you want to do. For example, in the screenshot in the Salesforce context, who owns how much in opportunities? Where are we selling? Are we on track for quarterly sales? What are the industries we are selling to? Now, also very important to notice, and I will show it to you during the session, is that there are a lot of pre-built templates in Salesforce. You don't always need to reinvent the wheel, let's say. My advice would be, before you start to make your first dashboard, take your time to really look into what Salesforce already offers. There is a lot of standard reporting on opportunities, on sales, sales flows, etc. So think what you need, see what's already there, and then start building your data sets from there. Now, I can imagine that it's not always easy, because in Salesforce, you're sitting on a whole bunch of data objects. Like what KPIs should we choose? What should our KPIs be? Of course, it's the hardest part of it all. Do know that also Salesforce offers you some inspiration about what type of dashboards you can make. and a lot is already there. Also, depending on who you are, you will need to have different reporting, because, for example, in this slide, they make a distinction between, are you a sales rep or are you a sales manager? Or are you really an operational person? Or you might be an executive. You might be making different dashboards with the same data, because depending on who looks at them, you will need different types of reporting. This is a very easy slide, but it really captures the next thing we're going to look into. On the left side, you see the basic objects like account, opportunity, user, the product, your leads. And the whole idea before you start dashboarding is to come to a data set which allows you to answer the questions you have. We will talk about the dilemma as well, where, for example, you have a column with your sales and you have your column with your profit. Where do I calculate my profit ratio? And that's the analytics dilemma I want to point out before we continue. It will always be a trade-off between, do we do the calculation in our data layer or do we do it at the designer layer? Both have advantages, both have negative sides. For example, if you want to do it at the dashboarding side, at the analytical side, you keep more versatility, more creativity. Whereas if you really have a streamlined idea of what you want, you might want to do it at the data layer, because then you need to do it one time. It can be reused. It doesn't need to happen on the spot when a user clicks on a dashboard. So as I point out here, the data layer one time, it does take more time at the start of the implementation, but saves you time afterwards. Whereas if you do it at the dashboard, it may be slower. You need to do it repeatedly. You might see different people even calculating the same thing in different ways, etc., etc. Now, this is again the last slide before I'm going to the CRM again. This is a slide you need to let this sink in, but I'm going to start with the start. If you are a Salesforce user, be it Sales Cloud, be it Service Cloud, be it Marketing Cloud, you have these data objects I've been talking about for a little bit by now. As you can see, Salesforce.com objects. And that will mainly be the data on which you will dashboard. And then you have two choices. You have the orange arrow, which represents direct querying on these objects. But as I mentioned, that's mostly not preferable. What you mostly want, and that's really a big aspect of Tableau CRM, is the connect layer, which is a replication. It's a buffering stage, which makes sure that if you make dashboards, that they don't query your operational system. But I will dive into it in a second. Then maybe you're a multinational who has multiple orgs. Then you can, of course, from Tableau CRM, connect to that other org. So a local org, maybe your colleagues at the other side of the sea, you can connect to the data, no problem. Is it only Tableau CRM data you can work on? Of course not. We have Redshift and other connectors. Snowflake, a very important one. As I mentioned, we use Snowflake a lot. Why? If your operational system is the data you want to work with, that's all fine. What if you want to build up history? What if you want to have some kind of change log of what happened in your org? You might want to take a snapshot every day of the data in your org, timestamp it, and put it in a database. That is possible with Snowflake. And of course, you can also build dashboards on Snowflake, even with a live connection. Then the obligatory Local files, CSV, of course, it's possible to connect to a local file. There's no problem at all. And then there are external connections for SQL, Oracle, or other types of data lakes. Now, I'm going to focus now on this very, very first bit. And do remember the concept of connect, because that's the first thing we will have a look at right now. Where is it? We are in the Analytics Studio, and we are going to go to the Data Manager, because when you implement Tableau CRM, that's probably going to be your first concern. And I click on the Data Manager, and we are in. By default, I'm at the monitoring stage. I'll switch to that, but our first focus is on connect. Connect is very important. As you can see, you have here really the base data objects in Salesforce. If you really want to do smart reporting with TCRM, you want to sync, replicate these base objects to CRM in order to dashboard on it. Here you can see SFDC_local. It refers to my local org, the org I am currently logged into. You can, of course, decide which data objects you sync. It will not default sync all of them. If you want to add any of the objects, you can here click connect to data. I can say, okay, for my analysis, I'm going to do, or we're planning to do, we need this object. You can click on it, continue, and it will be added to the sync. Now, as you can see, it's not on a schedule. That's what you want. You want all these objects, at least daily, for most of your reporting, I would say, maybe up to every 15 minutes, you want to run them. You can choose between doing a full sync of the data object or doing an incremental sync. If they're not on a schedule, for example, account, you can click on it, you can run the sync. Of course, you want to have a schedule, and you can also run them at the same time. Let's click it. What happens by clicking run now is that sync, that replication is happening. Where do we see that? In our monitor. Our monitor actually says, okay, most of them are queued, because you see it cannot execute them all at the time. These now nicely syncing all my data objects. Do know that syncing these data objects from Salesforce is not the only thing you can sync, because if we go to the top right, click on connect to data, we have a lot of other stuff going on. But firstly, I was talking about, imagine you're a multinational, you have multiple orgs, and you want to imagine that we are a European org. We want to connect to a US org. Simply by clicking add connection, I can link to the other Salesforce org and sync these objects in as well for later analysis or dashboarding. MuleSoft connections, MySQL, Oracle, and SQL Server, as already mentioned. Live connections, I can configure a connection to Snowflake, Salesforce CDP, and also, but that's for later, I can configure output connections, because maybe you want to store your Salesforce data and then connect to it. And as you can see, this is new. You can directly from Salesforce potentially write to Tableau online as well. Good. Now, when your sync and your connect is set up, you cannot dashboard on these items yet. They need to be at least a data set, a subset of your data. Now, where does that happen? And stay with me, because there are 2 or 3 ways to go from a synced object to a data set. We're gonna show that by going to data flow. And data flow, you can take it literally, because, for example, I have a lot of flows in here. Let's pick one, the default Salesforce data flow. It literally connects to mostly synced objects, and you can write them to a data set. The output of this flow will be the output on which you can start dashboarding. Now, let's start from scratch to give you an idea what happens here. So, where was I? Data flow, data flows. I can create such data flow, and I'm gonna call it my flow. My apologies for the naming convention. All right, nothing on there. Let's walk through things we do see here. First thing is dataset builder. If you're new to Salesforce, or you're not that technical and you have no idea how these objects relate to each other, and you have no idea how to make a useful data set, you can make use of dataset builder. I will call this one my first data set, and I'm gonna click continue. I now have access to all the objects which are synced in my Salesforce org. So for example, if I would be interested in my opportunities, I can click opportunity, and I can link it to, let's say, the people who and the data flow will allow me to actually update my data flow and run it so that I have a data set. Now, that's very high level. You will have no idea about how your data looks. So do also know that you can do it in a more pragmatic way. You see here SFDC digest, and edge marked, which allows you to or connect to a data object or a data set. Now, the options here are fairly limited, and I prefer the recipes, to be honest, because, for example, you only have the option to append and to augment. Append literally means add columns to an existing data set, and augment is a form of enrichment. For people who are familiar with doing joins, the augment might be a little bit limiting. Why? For example, I'm gonna give you an example. It can only deal with one-to-one relationships. I've made this a very, very simple example. Imagine that this are your account owners, John, Jack, Melissa, and Dave, with an ID, and you want to link it to your opportunities. Then it will be capable, when there is a one-to-one relationship, to link them. The good thing is an augment will never blow up your data set, but if you really want to intentionally link or build a data model, Augment might be a little bit harder. So let me give you an actual example of that. I actually upload these little two dummy examples to give you an idea. I go to data, I'm going to click create data set, and I'm going to upload it. The first one, you want to check Melissa and Dave, account ID. Okay. Next, I get a preview of the data I'm loading, and I'm uploading my file. So here you have it, account owner names, my first data set. Now for the exercise, I'm going to upload a second one. Our opportunities, open. Okay, 3 opportunities, great. Einstein is uploading them. There we go. And I'm going to build a data flow. I'm gonna call it my flow. And I'm gonna connect to the first one. My first one were my account owners, and they should be here somewhere. Voila. And the second one were my actual opportunities. And I want to do an augment with it. I'm going to give it a name, augment. My left source will be my account owners. I will join them on an account ID. My right source here will be my opportunities. My right key will also be my account ID. And I want to have these fields. I'm going to click create. Now, my advice would be, if you're not familiar with your data, don't go via data flow, go via Recipe. Why? This interface does not really allow you to see your data. Maybe some people are using Tableau Prep, where at every step you can see your data. You might be sailing a little bit blind here. So now I want to output. I'm gonna add the output node. Gonna give it name output. It connects to the previous node. It needs to have an alias. Let's call it output. Like this, and create. Good. I have a flow. In reality, you will be connecting to your data object. I here have just connected to 2 little files. I'm gonna update the flow, and I'm gonna run it. My monitor says I'm running it. Let me refresh. Aha, successful. Now, how can I see my result? In my flow? Nope. I will need to go to my data, and if I sort it on or look for output, there it is. and I can click explore. And I can actually see how my data looks like. We see the opportunities. It has been enriched with the account owner names. I'm not wild about data flow because I want to check my data at every step that I do. So I'm going to show you now the better way or the easier way. Data manager. You're not going to build a data flow, but you're going via recipes. Now, these are both flow tools which allow you to connect to data, write your data, and dashboard on it. But I prefer recipes, and I will show you immediately why that is. And to show you, I will make use of a data set which most of you or a lot of you will be familiar with. Is the Superstore data set from Tableau. It's about a company which has orders, and sometimes these orders get sent back, so they have a separate returns file, and we will be creating a recipe. So just to keep you on track, data flows is very good when you know your data. You only want to do augments, one-to-one relationships, not really creating a data model, whereas recipes actually has way more versatility in dealing with your data. Let me show you. So I'm going to create a recipe. And I need to add input data. Now, what is the data we are working with? Let me quickly show you. So on the one side, we have a little data set with orders, which have an order ID, a shipping date, a customer name, the segment to which the product belongs, etc. You don't need to know all the nitty-gritty details. The only thing you need to know is we are going to manipulate it and join it with another data set called returns. Returns is a data set which contains information whether an order got sent back, yes or no. Good. Now let me show you. I of course have uploaded the two data sets already. So our first data set is the orders data set. A lot of people say, yeah, these data sets is nice, but I really don't I want to see my data. So if you're at data sets, do know that you can explore them before you do anything with them. So if I go to orders, on the right side, click explore, and then on the table mode, I nicely see, okay, here's my data. This is the data I am working with. I'm gonna leave. Also, the returns data set is in there. Which we can preview by going to table mode. And there it is. Now, we were going to build a recipe. Data flow, recipe, and create a recipe. Very clean interface at first, but as with everything, we first need to say what the data is we're going to work with. I'm going to click add input data, and here I have access to all the data sets in my org. Do notice that Salesforce makes distinction between data sets, connected objects, and direct data. Direct data is directly querying the data objects. Data sets are the ones we prepared, and connected objects are the objects we have synced with data sync. But in this case, I'm going to work with data sets, more specifically orders. I can choose which columns I will retain, and I'm gonna click connect. Why is this better than the data flow in my opinion? Well, when I click on orders, I immediately get an idea of how my data looks like. I can see the columns, I can see what their formatting is, how Salesforce interprets them. Okay, next data set, add input data. I'm going to look for my returns data set. There it is. All right. To know that most of functionalities are not directly available from the top, but we will see what is possible by clicking the node, dragging it on, and in this case, I want to perform a join. A join that will not work at first, but I'm going to show you how you can prepare your data in order to join. So these two little data sets have a common key, which is the order ID. So if I quickly want to check, do they have any communal fields, I can check the inner join, and I have no output. I'm going to give a spoiler. It means that my join keys aren't ready to actually perform the join. So I'm going to take one step back. I'm going to clean my join key and then perform the join. And look, for those who work with Tableau Prep, this can become very familiar. You can choose to filter, aggregate, do transformations. But in this case, we want to transform or order ID. And it's the moment that you click transform that actually the power of the recipes become available. Good. What do we want to do? I want to parse out the actual order IDs from my field. Okay, how can we do that? This is the basic training. We're going to go with the default split option. I'm going to click split, and the recipe flow editor directly recognizes, okay, you might want to split on the hyphen delimiter. It will split on the first one, so I'm gonna call this one the first part is Canada or US, so I'm gonna call this one order ID ISO, and the second part I will call order ID year and order number. And we're gonna click apply. We do see, and this is way better than the data flow editor, we immediately see what transformations have happened. The order ID ISO nicely got cut off, but I still have this one. So actually, this is the basic. You could do it in one transformation, but I'm going to do a second time a split. So I'm going to click split. The first part will become the order year, and the second part will become the actual order number. And I'm going to click apply. There you go. I now nicely have the key on which I can join my data source. Good. Now I need to do the same thing on returns. So I click on the node, click transform, and this time let's try to do it differently, not doing it in this two-step split, but let's do it with this substring formula. Having said that, during this session, I will not give you a lot of examples on all types of formulas you can do in the recipe, but all the common formulas are there. Uppercasing stuff, lowercasing stuff, trimming, concatenating strings, all the mathematical calculations are in there, time functions, now function, datives. I dare to say that yeah, most of the things you would need to really prepare your data in terms of functionalities are in there. But now we're going to split based on substring. So what I'm going to say is start at the 9 symbol and then parse out 9 order ID symbols. So start at 9 with a length of 9. I'm going to click apply. There we go. We have nicely parsed it out. I don't need to click save and run. I just need to continue. Then, now our 2 data sets are ready. You should be able to perform the join. So I'm gonna drag it on, leave it. And once again, we're going to say, I want to do a left join based on the order number ID, or order ID, yeah, just name it formula, that's okay. And now we nicely see that we have enriched our first data set with the second data set. One thing left to do is write our output as a data set. How I need to apply it first. I'm going to define an output. I can output as a CSV. That's not what you mostly want. I could write it to an output connection, for example, Tableau Online, but I want to keep it in Salesforce. So I'm gonna give this name of the data set orders and returns. It always needs an API name, which cannot deal with spaces. So I will give this the order underscore and underscore returns name. I'm gonna click apply, gonna save and run. I'm gonna call this my first recipe and save. Recipe has been queued to run. To see the run status, go to the monitor of the data tab. Okay, let's do that. I'm gonna close this. So here in my recipes, I have a flow, my first recipe flow. Are you going to come back and click it daily? No, you want to schedule it. The nice things with recipes is you can schedule it with your sync, because in a real setup, you first want to sync your data objects and then run your recipes. So it's perfectly possible to say only run recipe after the connect has run. But for now, I will just click on it and run now. But do know that you can schedule it time-based, event-based. Here you see the option to trigger it after sync has ended, etc. You can do it every so many minutes, every hour, every month. You can choose on which days it needs to refresh. Of course, I would need to select the value, but I'm gonna just run it now. We're going to check our monitor. It's running. Still running. Almost there. I hope. Aha, it's done. I have connected to my data, did a transformation on it, and I now can start dashboarding on it. Now, I didn't immediately jump into all the nice colors and the dashboarding, because when you start using a new tool, setting up the right scheduling for your data sources is very important. This probably is going to be the biggest thought exercise: how the flows need to run, when they need to run, what the data sets are you need. But after this is done, you can go and start dashboarding. I'm quickly going to switch to my slide to see whether I've forgot to mention something important, and if not, we can have a look at the actual dashboarding in Tableau CRM. All right, so data in our Salesforce. I talked about the sync, the replication. Then we saw the data set builder, which makes use of data sets and can write it to a data set. But as I said, not my favorite, because it doesn't allow you to actually see your data. Therefore, I showed you how using recipes you really can do these fine-grained data transformations. So once again, connect for replication and syncing, the recipes, the enhanced data flows with a visual data wrangling tool to do similar, if not more, transformations with the data. Definitely my favorite. Data flows, and then data set builder, which is really at the high level connecting the data objects. Good. I showed you a manual upload. And then I think we can have a look at the actual dashboarding. Good. Where is it? Ah, here we are. Okay, we have data. We want a dashboard. Where do we start? Imagine that I want to build a dashboard based on my orders. Can we do it from here? No, you don't. You can create a story from the data manager, but you cannot create dashboards. In order to create an actual dashboard, you need to go one step back. Let me close this. Go to data sets. We see our orders, and when we now dashboard create, there we go. As I said, we can start from scratch, or you can make use of a template. For now, we will make use of a blank dashboard. Oof, finally we are there. We are in the dashboarding engine of Tableau CRM. Where do I start? Now, first of all, I'm gonna give my dashboard a name. And as I said, we're going to demo based on recreating one of the very famous Superstore dashboards and show you how you can get to one of these dashboards. All right. So the very first thing our dashboard needs is a title. Bringing objects, widgets to your dashboard is by taking one of the widgets on the left side and dragging them into your view. In this case, I want to bring in a table, so I will select the text widget. You can make it larger by clicking it and dragging it. And I'm lazy, so I'm just gonna double click, copy, and paste it in there and click save. And I will call it my Superstore dataset. There we go. Now, the first thing we are going to do, and it's also not the most sexy thing, but dashboards need numbers, need KPIs, high-level numbers. And I will now start by recreating my high-level total sum of sales. How do I do that? By clicking Create Query. And I'm now going to say which data set I'm using. So the data will come from the orders data set. Do notice that at first it will appear as a visual, which we will dive in very soon. But for now, I actually just need the number. So I'm gonna click on Done. And what do we see? On the right side, I have created my first query. Now, let's edit it, because by default, it takes the count of rows. I want to have my sum of sales. So I'm gonna click the plus, and here I find my sales. I'm gonna delete my rows, and I'm gonna click update. Now I want to have a KPI. So again, I'm gonna drag a text item, space it a little bit. And now I can add the number to the text widget by going to the right side, click Add Query Data, select the actual query, say I want to use the sum of sales, and click Done. There you go. I'm gonna tidy it a little bit up. I'm gonna call it sales, make the title a little bit bold, and click Save. Very important, click Save, because Tableau CRM does not have autosave at this moment in time, so it's good to autosave it. All right, we really want to make it look exactly the same. You see that it has a $sign in front of it, and you might wonder, where do I format my numbers? Well, formatting the number in this case might be the easiest by going to the right side to that specific query. And for my naming hygiene, I'm gonna edit it and give it a name. So this was my sum of sales query. Gonna update, voila. I'm going back in, edit. And here, by clicking on the measure, we see the number formatting. So if I want to have a custom formatting, let's say like this, with a $sign in front of it, I can do the formatting as I want it. Click Done, click Update, and there we have it. We have the $sign in front of the KPI. Okay, next, we have a lot of KPIs at the top of our dashboard. Let me do it one more time. So the good thing is you can copy. I can go Control-C, Control-V, and there it is. And I'm going to use these as placeholders, because I'm going to put on profit as well. And I'm not going to fill in anything here, so I'm going to keep it empty. All right, next one, profit ratio, Control-Z, Control-V. I'm not actually going to put all of them on there, but just to give you an idea of how we can build the dashboard up from the ground. All right, I want to have profit in there. Same way, I'm going to create a query based on my orders data set. Number of rows is there by default, but I don't want number of rows. I want sales, so I'm going to replace it. Click Done. And once again, don't get distracted by this bar chart, because This is just a starting point as well for if you want to make actual graphs, as we will see in a bit. Click done. I'm going to go to profit. I'm going to say I want to add query data to it. Select this one. Sorry, my mistake. We want to have profit, not sales. Click update. I'm going to give this a good name. Some profit. And then do it again. I click my widget, add query data, sum of profit, and done. I have my KPI at the top. Okay, titles and KPIs probably doesn't make your heart go any faster. So let's now go to making actual graphs in Tableau CRM. You probably have already seen it. So for example, if I want to make a chart, I can click the widget on the left and drag it on my dashboard. Then I click into the chart and I can start building. Now, people coming from Tableau Desktop know that it's a drag and drop experience. Making graphs in TCRM is more clicking and configuring, and it's really done in a very guided way. So for example, if I want to build a sum of sales for a specific value, I will, as I did earlier, go on count of rows. I don't want to have the rows, I want to have the sales. I'm gonna split this bar up, for example, by subcategory. There we go. And then I always tend to do it first. I want to see it descending. So I'm gonna click sum of sales and select descending. There we go. You see trellis, you see unused fields, you see query limit. Let me quickly explain what it can do. So if you have your graph and you want to make, if you want to split it out across another variable, that's totally possible. For example, if I want to have this chart for each of my segments, I can click on trellis, search for segment, and then there you go. I have that chart. Unused fields, I'm not going deeper into that, but sometimes you want to make use in your calculations, use of fields that are not directly used in the viz. It's a little bit the details shelf in Tableau. Do know that you can make use of unused fields for that. Do also know that you can at all times toggle between a visual representation and a values table. So if you say, okay, show me the numbers, just one click away, it gives you the table. But for this, I want to stick with the bar chart. And I want to sort it descending. I'm going to click done, and there it is. Now imagine that I want to make the second graph, the same graph for a second time, making use of a different dimension. I can just Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, click on it again, go into my bars. This time I don't want to see it per subcategory, but maybe per category. Click on it, update, and there we go. There are a lot of layouting possibilities. You don't see them immediately. Where can you lay out your charts? By clicking on the widget. Then on the right side, you can really configure everything you want. So for example, these are my sum of sales per category. So I'm literally going to type sum of sales per subcategory. And these are my sum of sales per segment. All right. I'm not making the prettiest dashboards here, just giving you a general sense of how it behaves and how it works. People coming from Tableau Desktop know that you have actions. For example, is the interactivity which comes from clicking in the actual graphs. If I go to preview and if I click on binders, do notice that by default, all my sheets are already linked. So if I click on furniture, my whole dashboard filters on my furniture category. If I click on machines, all my KPIs will filter on machines. Good. Let's go back. If you want to change the color of your bars, we scroll down, we here see conditional formatting. It's not conditional formatting yet. If you say, I want to give it another color, you can do it by clicking on the chart, going down, and then selecting the color of your choice. Another thing in between, tooltips. Very important to notice that TCRM auto-generates tooltips to give you information about the data point, the data aggregation you are looking at that moment in time. Good. The configurability in terms of layout, I'm not going to lay out all the graphs I'm going to make, but do know that you can adjust the font sizes, you can add subtitles to it, you can also add actions to it. Actions are very important. Why? As we see later, once your dashboard is finished and you make it available to somebody, they will be capable of subscribing to it, to have it in their email, share it with colleagues, but also performing actually actions on it. If they see a number which satisfies them a lot or not, they can click on it, make a call, go to the opportunity in your Salesforce Org, etc., etc. But the basic formatting options, just to know that you can lay out all your axes, remove the lines, lay out the labels, etc. Okay. Now, remember that we said earlier that it's always a trade-off where you do your calculations. So imagine that I am interested in a profit ratio, which is described as the sum of profit divided by the sum of sales. People coming from Tableau, just to give you an idea, this number here, this 12.5%, where does it come from? It comes from the fact that you're not bound to the columns in your data set. If we go, and we're now in Tableau Desktop, click Edit, we do see that we have a syntax editor available to make. In Tableau Desktop, it's called calculated field. In Tableau CRM, we talk about derived fields, making new fields while you are working, while you are in your working flow. And that's so important for every analyst or everybody who wants to really make these more advanced dashboards, that I want to give a quick example of that as well. All right, profit ratio. You won't find any create formula on the left side, but we can, as we already know, we can create queries. I'm going to click create query once more. Again, I use the orders data set, and I will now make use of add formula. It's a little bit hidden, but once you know it, it will become your best friend. I'm now not dependent anymore on the columns in my actual data set, but I can make derived fields. calculated fields if you like. So I'm going to click add formula. I am now in the formula editor and I need to give it a name. And I'm going to call it profit ratio. It also needs to have an API name, as you might remember. So in this case, it can have a space. And we're going to type sum of profit slash, which means divide by sum of sales. If you're not sure how your columns are written, do know that you have access to the fields drop down. And if you're not sure which functions you can use, you can click on functions and yeah, there you get an overview as well. Unfortunately, in Tableau Desktop, formulas are not case sensitive, and if I would type a lower case P, it will find profit as well. Be careful because this is case sensitive and the formula will not compute if it's not correct. So I'm gonna click apply, and as expected, it actually does need the underscore. Sorry for that. And I see the 0.12. Well, at 0.12 is our profit ratio KPI we want to recreate. 0.12 is not correct. We want to express it as a percentage. So I'm going to click on no format and tell TCRM it is a percentage and click apply. All right, I'm going to click done. And my query is saved. Now do know that I still have this count of rows, which I don't need. So I'm gonna delete it, gonna update it. And now I'm ready to use my hooray first derived field in the dashboard. How? Again, add query data, select the query. I haven't given it a good name. Let's do that in a second. Profit ratio and click done. Boom, there you are. I have my profit ratio, which of course is dynamic. Yeah? So that's the whole idea why we have not done it in an earlier data flow. We want to see it on the spot, calculated, recalculated in our dashboard. All right, so far so good. Now we were trying to recreate this dashboard in here, and we see we have this beautiful map with all the states of America, color-coded based on the profit ratio. All right, let's try to do that. Let's get rid of these bar charts. I don't need them. And we're going to create a map. So how do I proceed? Drag on the chart. I'm gonna need profit ratio. So I'm already gonna drag it on. But let me first name it correctly. Sum of profit divided by sum of sales. Update. Now I'm going to reuse it. So do know that if you have a query, you can clone it. And I have it a second time. So I'm going to make my graph, drag in the chart, grab my profit ratio, double click on it. And now look at that. We have this whole graph library at our disposal. I made this rather boring bar chart at first, but let me quickly show you. I took subcategory to notice that you can very easily toggle between all kinds of visualizations just by clicking and checking the ones you need. Sometimes you need more dimensions to actually make the graph show, but yeah, in this case, we were after a map. So I'm going to click delete on subcategory, and here we have the map. It doesn't show much yet. Why? I haven't selected the dimension which should provide the states yet. So here in the top left, you see locations. I'm going to click on the plus, and I should have a field called state. Click on state and click OK. The map is already there, but I don't see any states, let alone that they are being color-coded based on the profit ratio. Well, why is that? It's because Tableau CRM needs to know what that state dimension is. So I'm going to click update for a moment. It will add it to my dashboard. Gonna make it a little bit bigger. There you go. And then if we go to map on the right side, we're going to say, aha, these are US states. Good. I'm going to click save. And just to show you, it immediately comes with the interactivity we would expect from a modern dashboard. Good. Now I hear you saying, yeah, but the color coding here on the famous Superstore map, it shows that very low profit ratios have this darker orange, whereas positive ratios have blue. All right, we can do that by clicking on our map widget and then scrolling down to conditional formatting, where in this little drop down we find the dimensions and measures we are currently using in that chart. So if I click profit ratio, and high is good is blue, but low is orange. So let me click orange, and there you go. Click save. I have it. It's not perfect, and if the legend bothers you, do know that you can configure the view so that it's not there. Okay. Slowly but certainly, we are making a dashboard. Do notice that I did not start by just going over all the features, because then we would discuss a lot of features before actually showing a dashboard. So I'm really trying to be as pragmatic as possible. Then there are no filters on my dashboard yet, although I have the in-chart interactability. Let's change that. Let me give some space for a filter, and on our dashboard we see we have region. So we will put region on as a filter. I would have never guessed this little filter icon stands for filter. So we're going to drag it onto our dashboard, click on filter, gonna say that we are going to take a filter from the orders data set, region, click create, and there we go. Click save, and I'm gonna preview it. And now you nicely see I can make analysis on the regions I have selected. So far, so good. What else is on there? All right, we see an evolution chart, an area chart better, split by a calculated field, which we won't do. I'm just going to show you how you can make these two charts. What's on there? The evolution of sales split by segment. Okay, let's go for it. We're going to drag on a new chart, click chart, and then we're going to shop in our graph possibilities. And as we want to do an evolution through time, I'm gonna click on timeline. Of course, every timeline needs a date field. So here on the left side, you see time axis. So I'm gonna click on that, and I'm interested in plotting it according to my ship date on the year month level. All right, good. Count of rows, as always, is there. We're gonna replace that with our sales. Voila. And now we really wanted to split out vertically into the segments. And this is a bit tricky because you need to learn that your final visualization of your graph is mostly not here, but you can also fine tune it in the formatting settings. What do I mean by that? So for example, if I want to bring in the segment via trellis, I'm going to click plus, select segment. There is no pivot option, or I cannot drag it to the left side so it gets split differently. No, what we're going to do is we're going to click done. I'm going to give it some space. And then it should be somewhere here on the right side. We are going to tell TCRM how we want the trellis to be conducted. Do notice that it is set on horizontal at this moment in time, but if we set it to vertical, boom, there we are, and the graph is like we have it on our legacy dashboard. Now, I might hear you thinking, why are we recreating a Tableau dashboard? Well, if you implement a new tool, chances are that you have legacy dashboarding, and it will come as no surprise that questions will come. Hey, we used to have this dashboard in our legacy system. So, hey, you there, please recreate them and make sure that we have the reports we are used to. At that moment in time, it becomes very important to be sure that TCRM is capable of doing the job of recreating the dashboards in your Salesforce org. One last graph maybe before we take a short break. I see the same graph here, monthly sales by product category, but this time split by product category. Easy, I just click on my chart, Control C, Control V, put it next to it, double click on it and replace segment with category. There we are. And we have our first dashboard. Now I have to admit my spacing isn't the best because in practice you probably all want to nicely show it on one page when it's full size. Do notice how easy it is to just adjust the layout. Having said that, it is possible to make mobile layouts as well because TCRM is very compatible with mobile devices, tablets, etc. This is the basic training, so we won't focus on that. But you see here at the top right, you have the possibility to add layouts, manage your layouts, etc. Good. All right, we know how to build KPIs. We know how to make charts. We know how to add a filter. But we always have these people who want to see the details as data on their dashboard. How would we do that? Let's just grab the table widget, drag it on, give it some spacing, because the table needs to have some space. Click table. You might want, how do I get from this visual representation to an actual table? Very easy. You can very easily just go to table mode, click values tables, and TCRM will make a selection for you. 9 chances out of 10, this won't be the exact columns which you want to see, so you can start to play with it. Discounts, I don't need to have it on there, so I'm going to delete it. The customer name, that's not GDPR approved, so I'm going to delete it. But I'm missing this one column. Which one was it? Oh yeah, I want to have the product name on it, so I'm going to click product name, update columns, and there we go. I haven't talked much about filtering in general, but do notice that, of course, you can apply a filter to all your sheets. I say sheets, but I should say queries in TCRM. To also know that you, of course, can apply dashboard filters if you're doing an analysis on your current year's data. Don't allow 10 years of transactional data in there. Filter it out. Think about performance or whatever you do. Another thing I haven't talked about yet is the query limit. If you're making a top 10, for example, and now it's not going to show the Prebuilt because it doesn't make sense in this table, but if you say I have a top 10 and I only want to show the top 10 results of the query, you can add the query limit here and it will nicely show you the first 10 rows. Of course, you need to sort descending first and then apply your top before it makes sense. Now I'm gonna just enter a crazy big number in there. So all my rows are in there again. Last but not least, in this view, you know how to toggle between chart mode and table mode. I will now first put the table on my graph, and then let's have a look at what's hidden here as well. So I'm gonna click done. Here's my table. If you nicely want to fit it, you have the option of spacing fit to widget. It will nicely fill out, and as long as you will make it bigger, it will keep on filling it. It's for the people who want to see the data. Of course, you can give it a title, etc. So in preview mode, it does look something like this. Okay, it's 5 to 11. I suggest that we continue for 5 to 10 more minutes, then take a little 5-minute break, and then go to the next part of the session. But for completeness, you here see container. Of course, all the widgets you put on your dashboard, you can group them. For example, if you really want to start to think about layout, I want the background of the filters to be gray. Okay, how do we do that? I'm gonna grab a container, put it on my dashboard, make it a little bit bigger. I can normally set the background of, there you go. I can put the filter in the container, and there you go. So containers, easy to group your widgets and visually nicely sort them. Components are a little bit more complex and not part of this basic training, but the whole idea is that widgets are your building units of your dashboard. They're literally units because people can subscribe to a specific widget. People can put them in their favorites. So a widget is really a unit in themselves. It's actually a query. But if you say like, whenever I build a dashboard in the future, I don't want to rebuild all of these KPIs, or even better, imagine that your company has these KPIs which need to be on every dashboard, then you can consider putting them in a component. It's actually combining multiple widgets into a component which can be reused at other places in your Salesforce org. Then a date, because as you saw in your dashboard, yes, sometimes you need date filters, obviously. I'm gonna click on date. I want to be able to filter on the order date. I'm going to click create, and there we go. You have control over what is possible because you can choose between absolute date filtering and relative date filtering. What is absolute date filtering is show me the data from date X to date Y. Relative date filtering, very interesting, used a lot, is saying show me this quarter sales, show me last quarter sales, show me data of the last 2 weeks. By keeping them both checked, both possibilities are present in my dashboard. I'm gonna click preview. And here, as you can see here, if I want to select, I don't know which years I have at my disposable, at my, if I select previous year, there you go. All my dashboard filters to 2020. If I want to select current fiscal year, probably my data will go empty. Oh no, I have data, awesome. And then of course, if you click on custom, you can toggle between the absolute and the relative, where absolute, as I said, you can really define a slider and a min and max date, and relative allows you to anchor date selection to a specific year, quarter, month, etc., etc. I'm gonna click update. There we go. What else is possible? Links, obviously. Navigation is key in making dashboards. Dashboards are not isolated islands. If you see something, you want to be able to click through, maybe even navigate to a website, etc. But you can choose to make a button to go to another dashboard, but we're not going to show that here. Images, logos, of course, are just product images. It's all possible. Lists is actually just a different kind of filter. Number is a KPI. Range filters, text objects, and toggle. Yeah, toggle. In case you wonder, for example, we're going to specify a toggle filter. What does it mean? If I click create, and I want to have a filter on, let's say, segment. Then I now nicely have this toggle filter. How does it work? It's actually a single value filter for your dashboard. So if I now go to preview, it nicely filters out the value I have selected. All right, it's 11 o'clock. What have we done? I have showed you where you can find Einstein TCRM, how you can enable it, things you need to keep in mind in terms of licensing. We have checked the connect, used to be called replication, how you can sync your data sets because you don't want to query your operational system. Then next, I showed you the ETL tools you have in TCRM, being or the data flow or the recipe, where data flow is maybe a little bit faster but more rudimentary, and recipe was more like really the fine-grained transformations, the joins, really the last mile transformations you often want to do when making a dashboard. And then last but not least, we connected to a data set and started dashboarding. And as you might have noticed, it's quite intuitive. It's also drag and drop, but also clicking, creating queries, using them, putting the interaction in there. We don't go into depth here, but do know that once you have built your dashboard, You can share it with your colleagues, make it appear, embed it, make it appear in Slack. Because, for example, because now we are working in our isolated island, which is the dashboard creator. Imagine that we go a step back and actually go to our Sales Cloud. I'm now in the marketing one, but I said sales, so let's go to sales. The dashboards you make can be embedded in the CRM, and that's a rather easy thing to do. How? For example, if we want to add it on our home tab, we can go to the top right of our screen where we find edit page. And in this case, there already was a dashboard on there, but imagine it wasn't. Then we could, on the left side, in the components overview, we see Tableau CRM dashboard. And I'm going to drag it on. And I here can see all my dashboards. Of course, the Superstore dashboard we have been creating has nothing to do with the data we see here now, but just for showing you it can be embedded very easily. Let's give it a little bit more space. There you have it, dashboard embedded. We click save and it's ready when shared in the right way, of course, to be used by other users. For completeness, you can apply security that person A only sees data that person A should see, that managers see all the data, etc. Also at the dataset level in Salesforce context is called data security logic can be applied, so that all gets done automatically for you. All right, I've done a lot of talking for 2 hours. Let's take a small break. It's 11:04 here, so see you back at, let's say, in 10 minutes at 11:14. Thank you. See you in a bit. All right, here we go again. I am the only person keeping you from your lunch, so I'll try to stick with the timing so that you all can go for lunch at 12 the latest. So here we go again. I'm still here in the analytics studio. We have talked about data, the apps, stories, not yet. Let me recap one more time before we proceed. So once you are in your analytics studio, you have actually all your items at your disposal. I here nicely have the dashboards, which I have access to have a look at. So for example, D2C sales is one of these dashboards. Superstore dashboard we have created. Now, there's still a few things I want to show you before we go to the big topic of stories, is the idea of notifications. Dashboards are good, are interesting, but we all have busy lives and busy jobs, so you cannot expect from yourself, your colleagues, or your boss to sit in front of a screen and watch a dashboard as it proceeds. Most people will reason, notify me when something useful happens. Now, what something useful is wildly differs across roles and functions and organizations. But for these kind of situations, we have this thing called notifications. People coming from a Tableau server environment know alerts, and a notification is also an alert. It can give you a notification in the CRM or in your mailbox when something useful happens. I'm going to give you a very minimalistic example right now. So, for example, if I need to monitor the sales and I would like to get informed the moment, let's say, we cross a specific threshold, I can click in the dashboard on this little drop-down arrow, click Set Notification, and set a threshold. So in this case, if I want to get a reminder when we reach 800 million, 000,000, like that. Then I can choose notify me only the first time conditions are met, or every time a condition is met. For this case, probably one time is enough. And how many times do you want me to check it? Is it a target we want to get checked every day, weekly, etc., or at specific timing at the day? Imagine that I want to check this daily at a specific moment in time. I'll keep it at midnight for now. I can also choose who receives the notification. By default, you will, of course, subscribe yourself to this notification. But as you can see, you can also involve, let's say, your boss and your colleagues to get the notification as well, as long as they're on the Salesforce Org, of course. I can click Save, and this notification will get saved. You saw the visual cue that notification is on, and you get a nice summary of what the notification checks. So here you see a nice overview of the notification we have just installed. We see that we are year to date at 763 million, and I am tracking whether we are going to that 800 million or not. Good. Subscriptions, kinda relatable to what notifications are, but you're not setting a threshold. Imagine that I am a manager and I have access to a lot of dashboards. And from dashboard A, this number interests me. From dashboard B, this graph interests me. And from another dashboard, some other graphs are interesting to me. You don't need to subscribe to a full dashboard. You have the possibility to add a specific widget to your subscriptions. The idea here is the same. How do you do it? By going to all items, my dashboards, and for example, once again, the D2C dashboard. I can say, I want to see or track my lost opportunities. So I want to subscribe myself to it. So I'm going to click subscribe. And I'm going to call it lost opportunities tracking. I'm going to click subscribe. I get again a visual cue that I am subscribed to it, and I also see when I will receive it in my mailbox daily at 8 in the evening. When I go back, I go to my subscriptions. Here you see actually all the widgets I have subscribed to. You can roughly rearrange them if you say, those lost opportunities are my main KPI. You can move it up so that if you get the email in your inbox, this number nicely shows at the top. All right, last but not least, watch list. Now, when you plot a measure through time and you combine it with notifications or subscribe to it, it is some kind of watch list. Now, if you have a report, for example, and let me take DTC sales once again, which is on the dashboard as a static number, you might want to plot that through time and make comparisons through time. For example, if you want to see how your open opportunities stage amount evolves through time, you can click on it and say add to my watch list. From that moment on, you will watch that KPI and see how it evolves over time. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it open opportunities watch list. And then you can also say if it's going up, a good thing, or is going down, a bad thing. Now, I think, yeah, having a lot of open opportunities is good, but imagine that we don't want it to increase because these things need to be closed, right? So I'm going to click save. I will one more time get a visual cue. Metric was added to watch list. And now from this moment in time, if I go to my TCRM, check my watch list, I will see the metrics I am tracking. Yeah, the one I just added to my watch list has no history yet, but do notice that you will get a summary of how the number was yesterday, how it was in the last 7 days, last 30 days, etc., etc. So you can really see a KPI evolve over time. The average win rate, also important. You want to see whether that increases or decreases over time. I have a constant here because I'm working on dummy data and not much has changed lately. So my win rate is fixed at 74%, or your average sales cycle, how long it takes. Yeah, it's quite a long period, but once again, you will see it evolve if your data is living, but I'm working on dummy data here, so I see a constant. Good. So the homepage where you see everything, notifications to set thresholds on KPIs and get alerts when something happens. Subscriptions is when you want to see it in your CRM or want to get your favorite widgets in your mailbox. And watch lists is to see how your KPIs once again evolve over time, but for a specific time window. You need to find out for yourself what works best. Some people like notifications, some people work with the watch lists. It's a little bit what works for you best. Favorites, as in most tools, you can add dashboards to your favorites, datasets to your favorites. If you find yourself working as time goes by, always with the same type of dashboards or datasets, you can favorite them. Then you don't need to browse through the long list of all what's available. You will have your own favorites in TCRM. We didn't focus on it that much, but apps can be private and can be shared. So roughly speaking, if you make a dashboard and you save it to your private app, it will be only accessible to you. The moment you have a dashboard and you want to share it across your organization, you can share it in any possible way you want, based on functions, based on roles, but that's beyond the basic. Here you can easily see what's shared with you, things you have created, etc. So actually these items allow you to browse a TCRM, which can become an extensive place in terms of content that is available. The Learning Center, not going to dive into it, is actually resources, how to use it, self-learning. So if you after today you feel like, I want to get a grip on TCRM, check the Learning Center, or of course the Trailhead Learning Center of Salesforce, which is an incredible place to learn more about it. The Data Manager was the start of today, where we learned about connect data and setting up data flows. And then the Model Manager, which I will talk about very, very soon. Now we will switch to the last notion we haven't talked about yet. And this is the part where Einstein comes into the picture, because Einstein, as mentioned in the beginning, is a tool which makes you do things faster, easier, makes your CRM more intelligent. How? By allowing you to create predictive models. Now, predictive models, it can mean a lot of things. You really need to decide what your use cases are. Just to give a few, if you want to track your late payers and make a prediction of new customers that will probably pay late, you want to send them a reminder, you want to analyze which packages you send to a customer are most likely to be returned. If you want to predict your sales, make a sales forecast, these kind of things, that's all very possible, and it's built up so that you can make optimal use of your data objects. Einstein Discovery really helps you to go next level with the data you have in your CRM. But, and there is a big but, with every Salesforce implementation, it's necessary that there is a sense of necessity created with the people operating in it. And that's all the parties: operational people, managers, executive people. In 2021, all these techniques are really getting on point, but if you put garbage in, garbage will come out. And also, if you just have implemented your Salesforce, Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, whatsoever, you will need to first have some kind of historical build-up before Einstein will be capable of detecting anomalies, helping you to predict stuff, seeing the trends, cluster stuff, etc. Now, as I don't know my audience that well today, I don't know whether you're seasoned Salesforce users, I will demo this stories based on a very famous data set called the Titanic data set. Why? Because it's a little bit of a textbook school example for building predictive models. And I think for those who don't know the data set, I need to explain it a little bit. So what will we be doing? We will be loading the Titanic.csv file. What's key in this? So we want to predict something. We want to predict survival rates. What caused you when you entered the Titanic to survive or to have died, unfortunately. We do this with a binary outcome. And you need to do the creative part yourself here, because this is a very esoteric example. I'm aware of that, but the 0 and 1 can mean anything. For example, did somebody pay on time? Yes or no? Did somebody churn? Yes or no? Did somebody do an action? Yes or no? So Einstein Discovery will help you to predict, to really give you a clear insight in what the drivers of specific outcomes are. And in this particular case, the outcome is a binary outcome, so it can be 0 or 1, but it can be any number really. So a 0 here means did not survive, a 1 means survived. On that boat, you have different classes, so you could be on the first class ticket, second class, third class. You had a name as a passenger. We won't use this to predict because it has no meaningful prediction power. Well, whether you're a Mr. or a Mrs. might have predictive power, but whether your name is William or Elizabeth probably didn't have much effect on the outcome. Gender, sex, male or female, the age, whether you had siblings or spouse aboard, and whether you have parents or children aboard, and how much you paid for your ticket on the Titanic. Good, here we go. We will need our time. First, as this is a manual upload, I will quickly recap. I'm going to items, I'm going to data sets, I'm going to click on the right side, create data set. This time it's a CSV, but as mentioned, in practice, you will be predicting on your actual data or even external data or already prepared data sets. So I'm going to click on the CSV file. And here I have my CSV and I click open and I'm gonna click next. I will save it in my private app. Salesforce normally does the right thing with reading the CSV, so I'm not gonna bother that. You can do a quick checkup. If you already know that you won't be using specific variables, you can have a look at that. If you say I want to switch classes, you could do that, but I'm just gonna upload the file. Here's Einstein uploading the data set. And then we're really ready to go. Good. Dataset uploaded. And we're going to create a story. And you will immediately see how well structured the process is. The first thing they ask you is, what do you actually want to do? I want to analyze. And here they say, select a category or measure that has values in at least 50 rows in the data set. So I am interested, it's my dependent variable, who survived. I want to see what the drivers were to maximize survival. Now do notice that it doesn't matter that much whether you select minimize or maximize. It just depends on how you want to interpret your results. Do you want to maximize on what the drivers were on that you would define it the other way. But I want to maximize survival. I want to see what the drivers were. My story needs to have a name, and I need to, I'm gonna save it in my app. Okay. Then, and this is very important, do you wanna be purely descriptive? And then Einstein will generate a whole bunch of output. Or do you really want to have a predictive model? So as you can see here, quickly find descriptive insights and evaluate whether your data is ready to create a predictive model or actually start predicting. And once again, I'm making a huge simplification of an actual prediction process here. Garbage in is garbage out. If you have incomplete data, incomplete rows, incomplete columns, you will need to be thoughtful about that because missing data means something. Also, missing data can cause a technique not to work, to have bias, to make the wrong conclusions. Maybe you need to do imputation. You maybe need to exclude some rows. Maybe you need to enrich it. Maybe you need to even pay for some information about your records to make better predictions. Okay, this may be an extreme example, but do know that the assumption of the computer of Einstein will be that what you feed to him is factual reality. Check your data. Data science, 80% is data quality, 20% these days is the output, because the computational power is there. It really depends how you, as a human, even when you're guided as strongly as you're here in this WYSIWYG editor, you need to be very thoughtful about it. Yet, Salesforce is becoming increasingly good in also helping you with the data side of it. And I think we'll see it because is your data ready for it? It will do all kinds of checks. Do you have enough data? Are you capable of doing the right splits? Do you have potential bias, etc.? But enough talking. We are going to assume that that exercise, that thought exercise is done. Our data is ready. We're going to click setup. Another thing, if you feed a data set to Einstein and you will go on automated pilot, it will do a best guess of what is really useful to put in. But I strongly suggest that you at least think about what you put in your models. For example, if we now go to the next data option, you see that Einstein already does a few things normally. This is the log. This is survived. This is what you want to predict. Why is the log there? Of course, you don't want to put it in as an explanatory variable because You would explain something with itself and it would have no predictive power as such. People who survived. That's not a prediction. So this is locked. We want to maximize it. No correlation. Then look how Einstein automatically deselected name. Why? Because name does have no generalizable power. Everybody in the data set had a unique name. To give an example in the same context, if you would put a unique row ID as a variable of which you expect explanation, it would also deselect the best case because it has no predictive power. Then another thing we see, correlation. Correlation is used as a possible first indication of explanatory power. Why can you not put your trust in correlations? People with a background in statistics or mathematics might already know the answer. Correlation is not causation. It's not that because two things fluctuate with each other, like for example, it has been proven that if you drink a lot of milk, that book sales go up. That's a correlation, but that's not a cause. So be careful, yet it's the first possible indication. So what do we see? That sex, gender, has a high correlation with your output survival. Might not come as a surprise, because if you're on a boat and that boat starts sinking, and I'm not a boat expert, I haven't been on a boat recently, but it's still women and children first. So we possibly directly already see an indication of the fact that, or maybe the males were jumping in the rescue boats, we don't know, but it might be an indication of, yeah, women had quite a higher survival chance. Then the fair, the siblings, age, the class, etc. It has some correlation, but not that much. That doesn't mean that in combination with each other they can have a higher impact, because these are unilateral correlations. So parents versus survived, age versus survived, etc. Maybe there is the dynamic playing that the end result, in combination with each other, they have a higher prediction. All right, enough about that. We see we're predicting at 887 rows. We have seven columns. That's not magic. Then on the right side, it's an important one. Here you see you have chosen to do the predictive part, and then algorithms. There are a lot of algorithms. They get fine-tuned. Some people spend their lives at optimizing algorithms, making them better. But as being a very pragmatical consultant, you need to know one thing. There is a difference between a good model and the best model, but the best model is the one you can implement tomorrow. So you can hire data scientists and on the one extreme and ask them to code your models, or on the other side you can go and sail blind and trust in your computer. But do know that the computer might not make the best possible model. It might get you quite far for the business problem you have in front of you. In addition, GLM, generalized linear models, GBM, boosting methods, etc., XGB, random forest. These are very sectors developed models which have proven in the past that they work. It only comes down to you offering it the right data in the right format, and the computer will do the rest. Now, it doesn't matter. Well, it will make your life easier if you know what they do, but it's not necessary to make use of these things. You need to have enough confidence that if you, with the right attention, use this tool, that it will give you correct results. To conclude, if you don't know what to choose, you can take model tournament. Then Einstein will train using these different models, will benchmark them against each other, and then choose the best one for you. Then the validation option. This is basic, so I'm not going into details. You want to have a model that is also applicable on new data. If you overgeneralize based on your data, you have a huge bias and your model will fail in the real world. A basic strategy to make sure that what you learn from your data is also applicable in the data you generate tomorrow, or the customers you see tomorrow, or the clients you're calling tomorrow, whatever, will be validation. Are you capable of taking a chunk of your data, train on it, and apply it to the other one? It's called validating and making a training validation split between the two. Let's define the ratio here at 75-25. So I will use 75% of my data to train on, 25 to validate on. And I'm going to click create story. Here you see Einstein is in the lab crunching the numbers, evaluating the graphs, creating drill downs. He's conducting statistical tests, maybe even transforming your data, detecting patterns, etc., etc. This process can take from up to a few minutes to hours, maybe even a full day. It will not take a full day for 800 records, but if you are doing some transactional analysis on, let's say, like 50 million rows, or maybe it will take some time. So I have obviously already trained the story before, so I'm not going to wait until this is done, but I'm going to jump directly into the story I have created. Let me see. This is the one he's still working on. This is the one I already ran yesterday. This is the output, and this is a lot of output, but let me high level sketch what we are looking at. At the right side, once again, we see the correlations, and then we see the biggest drivers of survival and also the combinations which caused the highest survival. So here you see who survived most, who survived least. So if you were female in first class, you had not less than 96 survival rate. Good. I'm not going to dive in because we're approaching the end and we don't have the time to really discuss all the graphs, but do know that you might get these benchmarks of all these categories to the others to see whether there are significant differences in explainability, etc., etc. Also, a very nice feature, and this topic has gained a lot of attention lately in the whole data science world, is the notion of disparate impact. It flags sex, gender as a possible problem. Imagine that we see, oh, women have a higher survival rate, so next time we go on a boat, we're not going to save the male population because they have such a low survival rate. Okay, I'm exaggerating a lot, but in real life context, this can have serious consequences. If an insurance company uses data science to predict whether you get a loan or not, it can cause people not getting a loan because of the wrong reasons: race, gender, social background, etc. Salesforce has done a very nice job here in flagging these, and sex or gender can be a variable which is very sensitive to this kind of bias. Good. This is the descriptive part, but we want to predict things. So I'm going to the prediction part. And what has been done under the hood is an equation has been prepared, calculated, generated. And here we see that if you can see it as a what if analysis. I can select possible values and I can see my prediction. Now transfer this to a very operational context. If you have a customer on the phone with a complaint and you need to very quickly decide whether it's useful to give them a discount or give them some kind of promotion, you can give this kind of what if analysis to the people on the phone to quickly evaluate, I should now take this action. It can be manual, selecting a few values and then see what the computer says in order to maximize or minimize some sort of outcome, profit, customer lifecycle, retention, churn prevention, etc. Or it can be full automatic, but we'll talk about that later. If I was a female from first class, no wonder I would have survived. Okay, then there's a lot of output. We're not going to discuss model accuracy 80%. That's quite good. But how do you deploy these things? Because I'm now still on my island. I want this to be used. I want TCRM to really help my organization to get smarter and do things. All right. What you then can do is go to model, do a very last checkup on whether you have done well, whether the model makes sense, whether it has predictive power. And very importantly also, are there data issues? No. Then you can conclude, all right, we want to have this model in production. We want to use this. We want to tie what we have learned to our CRM, to our interface, to where our people work. How do we do that? Well, I can click on deploy model. And here we see Einstein with his hands in the air, very happy because the bird he has trained is going to the real world, going to production, going to try to make the difference in the real world. So I'm going to click get started. I'm going to get a summary. Is this a new model you want to deploy? Is this a replacement of an old model, etc. So I'm here, as I already ran this analysis, I will choose update an existing model, and I'm going to click next. Again, small summary. This is the model. This is the threshold. What is the threshold? Well, if I say you have 76% chance of survival, it will convert to a 1. If it's lower than that, it will say you have died. So the threshold is the threshold of saying survived or didn't survive. So I'm going to click deploy. Good. Our model is in production, is ready to be used. Now, what does to be used mean? You can link it to new data in your CRM that literally, if somebody of your employees is working, they get the predictions at the top right side in their screen. Or you can talk to it programmatically via an API in one of your other apps. But one of the things I want to show you at the end is how we now see that these nice Einstein features are coming to the whole Tableau toolset. And if you allow me, I'm gonna open Tableau. I'm gonna close this one. I'm not gonna save it. I'm gonna open it. There's Einstein still at this campfire. I'm gonna open my last version. Doesn't necessarily need to. It's been there for a while. Because once you have trained a model, you want to do something with it. You don't want to stick in the past. You want to apply it to new data. That new data can be new data in your CRM, but maybe you want to apply it to an external source. So here we are in Tableau Desktop, so we're not in CRM anymore. I quickly need to restart for licensing purposes. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. And imagine there is a new boat, a new Titanic, and new data is coming in. So I'm going to click Microsoft Excel. And on my desktop, I have this data set called new boat. Again, I'm exaggerating just to indicate that this is potential new data. For you, please make the parallels. It can be new transactions, new clients, new customers from your CRM or from somewhere else. We do have under help, settings and performances, manage analytics extension connection. Actually, I should have opened a more recent version. Sorry. Quickly gonna open this one. It's not there in 2020.3. I'm gonna close this one. Don't save. I'm gonna connect to it again to my new data. There we are. As from the latest versions, you can connect to the models you have trained in Salesforce from Tableau Desktop as well. So I'm going to click test connection. Of course, I need to show that I have the right to log in. So I now will log in to the training org I've been demoing from in the last 2 hours. Allow. And I'm connected to it. With only 4 minutes left, I won't be able to fully build it up from scratch. But what's the main idea is that if you're building a dashboard in Tableau Desktop, you can make use of this new extension, which is called Einstein Discovery by Salesforce. And when I click on it, look, I have the model available here. I can do what if analysis on it, and I can directly link it to my new data. The same thing is possible with Tableau Prep as well, just to show you that the models you trained don't need to stay within your CRM, but can be applied wherever necessary. All right. Good. Little recap. Today we talked about how you can set up Tableau CRM. We showed you how you can build data sets with it. We showed there's a lot of versatility in doing so, multiple tools available. Always keep in mind what you want to do. Setting up your flows is very importantly. We showed that TCRM allows you to really group, structure, organize yourself for your visual analysis and dashboards in your company the way you want it. Do notice, although I haven't focused on it, it can come with necessary security and sharing inheritance. I've showed you that in terms of dashboard capabilities, it's definitely up for the job. Everything you want to see in a modern dashboarding tool, it is there. If you choose for the Einstein edition, the Einstein Discovery, it's a nice addition on top of the tooling. If you have people in-house, data scientists or not, with a very basic training or knowledge on the topics, you can already get very far. And we have also seen that although TCRM is focused on getting the most out of your Salesforce data in interaction with Tableau Desktop, Tableau Server, you can actually organize the way you want. Because sometimes the people who need to consume the analytics don't necessarily operate in your Sales Cloud or your Commerce Cloud, and then you might have the need to have the dashboards in Slack, in a tablet, on a mobile, or on a Tableau server, for example. Thank you very much for joining this webinar today. It was my pleasure to be your host. This was very high level. It was very fast. If you really feel like, I really want to go into deep, I really want to have it hands-on with exercise, step by step, do it yourself. Do know that we have a one-day TCRM training, which can be offered to you, obviously, in a digital way, as you're still living in a COVID-19 world, or on site if timing and location allows it, taking everything into account. If you have any questions about TCRM or Tableau, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, send me a message. But more importantly, if you're interested in licenses, services, help, consultancy regarding Salesforce, Tableau, or implementing TCRM, do not hesitate to get in touch with Bistri. Our website is still bistri.be or bistri.com, and you can always mail to sales@bistri.com for any follow-up questions. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the end of the year, and hopefully see you next time. And I'm very open to feedback, things you would have seen discussed, things you missed out, things that weren't clear. Let me know. Thanks a lot.